Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, members of the 90-Day Bible Challenge crew, Dr. Precious Boyle, Ranieka Weston, Bo Stevens, Clayton Beale, and Frederica Peterson. Hey, what you drinking? You know, and to your point, Bo, it's like reading the Old Testament really does validate why Jesus had to come, because, oh my gosh, we tried so many times to get this thing right. And no matter how much, oh my gosh, we tried so much. I was actually getting frustrated. I was getting frustrated at God, saying, how much more of this? Come on now. How much more? Ranieka, Ranieka, I see you. And then Kiki, I see you nodding your head. You got, jump in.
Oh my Lord. I just felt like we hit some kind of milestone when we got out of the Old Testament. It was like we were tapping out, like, I'm done. And it was one of those things, man. Oh my Lord. But one of the things that I want to I want to definitely iterate what Dr. Precious and Bo were just saying, but I know I've read the Bible many times, but I haven't read it from cover to cover, not from Genesis to Revelations. I might have read it, pieces here, pieces there, based on the Bible plans. There is a difference reading this Bible from Genesis to Revelations in that order. It just brings another layer or another level of understanding and respect and humbleness to the process, and a different way of knowing God. I think we play with him too much. I think we play too much. And if you read that Old Testament, you're going to stop playing.
That part right there.
What's your reaction to that, Dr. Precious? You offered an amen testimony there.
Yeah, just quit playing with God. And I think a lot of us, we do that unknowingly, in part because we don't understand. And the other part, again, is because we're watching other people and they're playing with God. So we play with God, and we just don't know. It's ignorance and it's tradition. There's so much tradition in what we do, and we're not interrogating the tradition to figure out where that lives in the Bible. We heard somebody else say it, so we say it. We saw somebody else do it, so we do it, when actually that stuff is not even in the Bible. God didn't say that. There's a whole, I think it's Darius Daniels who has a whole message on titled, God Didn't Say That. Because there's so many things that we say that God didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
It's just tradition.
Yeah.
So we need to stop playing. But if we are literally trying to live for God, if we are his chosen, we've got to act like it.
All right, Ranieka, Clayton, what are your thoughts?
For me, it started in the book of Genesis. When we were looking at where Eve and Adam were, we were like, what? And then it kept going with every book of the Bible. And I remember saying, and I hope people don't feel like this is blasphemous, but I said, this is better than any daytime soap opera. The way the people were carrying on, the action, the suspense, I love a good story. And for me, I kept trying to figure out the genealogy. And you all laughed at me early. You remember that the genealogy was important as you got through parts of the Bible. But what I did not know, the novice in me, was they were going to talk about the genealogy again. I thought I just had to get it the first time. So, that to me was even eye-opening. The fact that, Ranieka, they're going to talk about it again and again to reinforce the things that you need to know. I go to church now, and it's like, as the preacher is talking, I'm right there following along. Before, I felt like, I use sports analogies. Like, I watch football, got 2 kids that play, but I don't really know them positions. The only thing I know is a quarterback's supposed to throw the ball and the other people's supposed to block. But it's like now I know exactly what I can call the plays before the plays are happening, knowing the Bible and reading it. And now you're open to other people's interpretation. I think before I read it, I just took their interpretation for granted. I remember the story of David, and when he danced about, right? And then his wife's womb was closed. And so we in our group said, was her womb closed because God did not allow her to have children? Then I heard a pastor say, or was it that, thinking about the time, that these people existed, that her husband never laid with her again? And we forget that these people were human. So we want to put everything on God, but there were some human aspects to some of the things that happened as well. And I never would have thought about it from that perspective had I not known that story in the Bible and the context of what was going on.
I did want to go back, at least for me, the thing reading in the Old Testament, we're talking about just learn how much he loved us, because as many chances as he gave over and over and over again, and mistake after mistake, and he would punish him, he would give him more and more chances, which really understood why Jesus did have to come, because Bo mentioned that Jesus had to come because there was no other way. But he gave for thousands of years, just over and over again. And it just really taught me just how much God really loves us, because I think after three quarters through we didn't love them either. We were thinking, what is wrong with these people? Why didn't God keep saving them? Because I was ready. We were done. Oh, you know what? I wouldn't even come back and save them. Right. But this is that's in the Bible. We're talking about it like it's a soap opera, but if you read it, this is what it is. And it was real. So I just really want to, put that out there for anyone who wants to do this. It's a lot. Like you said, not blasphemy, but it's like a soap opera, a reel about what goes on and what people do.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I think I got this from Bo, and I've been quoting this to a lot of people and giving you credit, Bo. So I hope I get this right. But at one point you were like, if Jesus hadn't come, then we'd have to invest in a whole lot of goats and sheep, because that was, yeah, I don't know where I would keep all these goats that I'd have to slaughter on the sacrifice, because that was the alternative, right? Was that you? Did I get that right?
I don't know if I can. I don't think I can take credit for that.
So, what else jumped out at you as you went through this process? We talked about how it's so easy to pass judgment on people who lived thousands and thousands of years ago. And as an elderly church mom said in the vestibule of a church that I was in my youth, she said, boy, if I was God, Old Testament would have been a short book, because I wouldn't have put up with all that. Right. I'd have squashed that along. Good thing I ain't God, because I would not have put up with all that. What else jumped out at you as being a reaction as you walk through the Bible? What did you experience about life? How did you experience your life as you were reading through all the books?
Yeah, Galen, God used flawed people as so you see the real flaws in the people that God used, and so it gives you an appreciation that God can use you. You don't have to be perfect to get started.
He used imperfect people to manifest his perfect will. That's.
I still haven't gotten over the fact that Jesus was not baptized in the Jordan. I'm just calling myself out. But that's one of those things that we learned in discussion, that Jesus people was not baptized in the Jordan River. There's a lot of people that believe that he was. And it's a conversation that came up not too long ago, but he was not. So I'm still trying to get through that.
Okay, I missed that part. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this a Saturday afternoon. Talk me through that.
Basically what it was, we were talking, I don't remember I think maybe we were in that part of the Bible, and we were talking about Jesus, whether or not Jesus was baptized. I don't remember who brought it up. And I'm like, sure he was. He was baptized in the Jordan. And it was, I think, your sister-in-law that corrected me pretty quickly to let me know that he was not baptized, that he baptized others, but he was not baptized in the Jordan. I cannot remember who it was. Don't get me going. So I got to read it again. Go ahead, Precious. I see something to you too.
Well, no, I think did he baptize people or did his disciples baptize?
Yeah, that was the point of conversation.
His disciples, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
He never baptized anyone.
Right. It was the disciples.
The
He only
disciples.
baptized John, though. He did baptize one
He did
person.
baptize John. That's just
Go
one
ahead.
example of the things that you're like, wait a minute. We've been taught this. I won't call them lies. I'll just say that they've been
Misunderstandings.
misunderstandings passed down that we've just got to clear up and not continue to pass those things down.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to read it for yourself
And then talk about it
and talk
with
about
other people,
it.
because you might miss it. Because people have traveled to Israel to get baptized in the Jordan River like Jesus did. Trust me. There's a whole lot of them that if they hear this, they're going to be all messed up behind it.
And then they're going to be emailing me. They're going to be emailing me saying, Galen, you said, join the group. We're going to work through it. I remember the conversation being about what is the importance or how significant is baptism? And, you know, I come out of the Baptist tradition. My granddaddy was a Baptist minister on the Mississippi Delta. And, you know, not only could he talk through the word, but he can hoop and holler like the best of them. Right. So I understand that. But the question was, how important and how significant is the symbol of baptism if Jesus himself did not baptize anyone? And there was question about whether or not any of his disciples got baptized. And if that's the key, I know in certain parts of Romans, Paul lays out here's the requirements for salvation, and that just caused a whole bunch of question around the significance of baptism. And I think where we left it, and I don't know, we can start this conversation again, was that baptism was not a necessity for salvation. However, it was a demonstration of what you believe and who you believe, and trying to be consistent with living that life and symbolizing, your life beforehand and being reborn and that kind of thing. But that's what I remember. Help me clean that up. Where do we land on that?
That's what I remember too. And I think the way I settled it in my spirit was I've been baptized twice. Once in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and second time in the name of Jesus. It didn't hurt. That's all I'm saying. It didn't hurt. However many times I need to go down, I'm willing. Take me down to the river, take me down in the water. It doesn't even matter. If it's going to get me closer, I'm willing. But I think it's more the outward expression of your willingness. The heart is what God is looking at. So I don't know for certain or for sure that it is a requirement. What I know is whatever the requirement is, I'm willing.
You know, that's what I love about this. I was gonna say, that's what I love about this group, because this is a group of non-judgment. It is the most curious group of Christians I have ever been with, where we could ask the question and we could go and seek the answer. And because we did it in 90 days, I can't say that all of the answers have been etched in my head and I know it like I know the back of my hand. Right. But I do know that we've been exposed to it. And as we said before, we're going to go back to it again. And Galen, speak a little bit about the guests that came to the show. I'm trying to run a 10K all out of shape, puffing and puffing, get to the finish line. Y'all on the line, and I gotta be there. So there was so much learning in that. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, because we did have a specialist down here.
Yeah, so in this, I get an opportunity to tell on myself. I'm gonna tell on myself. We were reading in the Old Testament, and I think we were reading about Job, and I think Bo brought up the fact. It was either Bo or Clayton brought up the fact that there was a tendency to want to do research and to do study, right? And then we had to just commit that this was not a study, right? Just keep reading. But when we were back in Job, it's like that was back when I was really committed to, I wanted to understand this, right? I was wanting to understand some things. And I think I got a question from one of you guys on the chat about Job and what does that symbolize about marriage and his wives. And I'm like, that's a really good question. And so I started doing some Google searches, and I found some articles, and I'm like, well, that makes sense, but that conflicts with this other thing that we read, and that doesn't really sit well with this other thing that we read. So, I kept researching, and then I finally realized, hey, wait a second. A friend of mine, Dr. Kimberly Russell, is a Bible scholar. She's actually regarded as being one of the top 6 women Bible scholars on the planet on the subject of Old Testament. And I'm thinking, okay, well, why don't I just reach out? What's the use of having friends if you never call on them for anything? And so I reached out to Dr. Kimberly, and I said, hey, look, this is the question. This is what we're doing. Here's the question. Here's the research that I found, but the research doesn't quite jive with what we've seen. Help me fit with all this stuff together. And her reply was, so Galen, where did you get all this research from? I said, well, I put this into Google, and Google came back and they gave me these articles. And she said, well, first of all, you need to leave Pastor Google. And if the challenge is to read the Bible, just read the Bible and leave the church of Google. And she just got so frustrated with trying to explain to me why this road that I was on was not going to end anywhere nice. And she just offered, would it help if I just showed up and was part of your conversation for one Saturday to kind of walk people through, the research that I've spent my life doing on the Old Testament? And I said, absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And then she said, hey, do you mind if I bring a friend? I told a friend that I was going to do this, and she wants to come, and she's not going to say anything, but she just wants to hear me do my thing. I said, well, sure. I mean, it's open to everybody. Tell me a little bit about your friend. Well, my friend happens to be one of the foremost scholars on the New Testament on the planet. And like I said, she wants to come, and she wants to, she's just going to sit in the back and not say anything. I'm like, well, she can come, but I'm going to tell you right now, she's going to have to say something. And so we had, oh my gosh, it was just bigger than what I anticipated, where they were sharing their research. They were sharing what they've done and bringing their gifts to our journey. Because to Ranieka's point, we were all curious, we were all searching, and it was just such a relief for these scholarly women to come in and say, just read the Bible, just read the Bible.
Yes. I'll jump in. I'll say that for me, what I took away from that conversation is read the whole thing. Read the whole thing. When we look at the book of Job, what came up was when we look at the book of Job, most preachers and most sermons and most things that we hear are the beginning and the end. God recommended Job to Satan, and he was tested and tried and all of that. And then at the end, Job got double for his trouble. There was so much that Job got back so that's all we hear.
Because of his patience.
Because of his patience, the patience of Job.
Yeah.
And so the point is, read the whole thing, because that whole section in the middle clearly displays Job's patience or lack thereof as he wrestled with what was happening. And so I think it's what it helped me to see was you can't live by the sound bites. You can't just go on the beginning and the ending of a story. All the stuff in the middle matters. God is a God of the details. The details matter. So we can't keep skipping over stuff. And I'm so glad they came, because I think I still would have approached Job and the book of Job as, oh, I've heard this before. I know God recommends Job, and then Job goes through a lot of stuff, and then he gets all this stuff back. He gets double for his trouble. And that's it.
What else? Ranieka, you got us talking about Dr. Kimberly and her friend who who came to our session, and actually one of the resources that she recommended was a Bible that she helped edit. So she actually edited a Bible, and I'm like, why are we struggling? All right, so we had some guest speakers that come in who seemed to be pretty excited that we were reading in community. I think it was Dr. Kimberly who said, the Bible is intended to be read in community. What other reactions did you get from this journey that we've been on?
That Job was a parable. That messed me up.
Yeah.
Job was a parable. We did not mention that. You went everywhere but there, Dr. Precious.
I was nervous. I was nervous about it, so I chose to omit it.
Well,
you brought it up.
I'm not too nervous about it.
I wanted to say it when I was scared. I was scared to jump off the cliff.
Just push me.
And they're gonna email me.
No, they're gonna email me. I'm gonna get the whole Church of God in Christ, the Missionary Baptist Church. I'm gonna get all the denominations calling me, the Southern Christian Tabernacle. Everybody's calling me. I can see it right now. One of the things I'm curious about, and this is one of the things that I talk about folks who are intrigued by this challenge, and that is, how has this changed how you live your life? Because the thing about leadership is, as we've said, leadership is an action word. And if you read this book from cover to cover and go through everything that we went through in order to complete this, and it does not impact your life, I'm going to suggest that you might need to read it again. So what has this challenge done to you or for you as you go about living your life?
For me, I think it was just understanding that I am God's chosen, and understanding that in a completely different way, appreciating the fact that I am chosen. And then to Dr. Precious's t-shirt, I need to act like it. So I, just understanding what that meant, understanding what they went through in the Old Testament, seeing a lot of what happened in the Old Testament happening today, and recognizing that I have the power to break that cycle in my own life, and should now, because I know better. So I need to do better. So for me, it was just really having a lot more clarity around understanding what it meant to be God's chosen, and to be loved so deeply in that as well, which is something that Clayton had gotten to a little bit ago.
Yeah. So who else? Bo, you and I we've communicated and connected a couple of times about, our desire to be at least some semblance of being the kinds of fathers that we grew up with. And this fatherhood thing was a whole lot easier when it was my dad doing it. Because now that I'm behind the curtain, oh my gosh, it's a daily dose of humility and courage to step into that gap of uncertainty. What has this challenge done for you, to you, in pursuit of some of the other goals that you have in life, whether it's your career, whether it's to be a father? What has this process done?
Yeah, great question and comment, Galen. So as a father, what you understand, or what I get when you really delve into the Bible and you understand God and where you fit in, you understand that you're a child of God. So then you start to see that differently. I mean, as you have kids and what you feel for your kids, you understand how God looks at you. You kind of, and so we have a lot of young people with anxiety and issues, and they don't know where they fit in. You read the Bible, you'll start to figure out where you fit in. And and I challenge anybody, young or old, if you read that Bible start to finish, it will affect you, and it will affect your attitude and your demeanor, and it will calm you down a little bit, and you'll react different to different situations than you would have before. So that, it's a challenge, but I challenge people. It will change you while you can't read big chunks of the Bible over, every day and not start taking that in and own some of those qualities of strength and calmness and stability, right? And that's leadership. Calmness under fire. If you understand who you are in God and where you fit in this whole thing, yeah, you calm down a little bit.
Yeah, or at least be convicted and saying, "Wait a second, I was criticizing, that dude back in Leviticus, and here I go doing the exact same thing. Well, not the exact same thing, but close enough to call it the same thing, right?" And oh my gosh. Now, Dr. Precious, I see you smiling and nodding. Well, how has this challenge affected a church girl? Because you grew up in the church, so you knew these stories. But how did this challenge affect how you try to live your life on the other end of completing this?
I'll start with the fact that if you remember when we started out, the question or the thing that stood out to me about joining this challenge and what drew me to it was I was in transition in my business, trying to figure out how do I infuse more of my faith in my business. I was trying to figure out how to use God as a strategy. God says, I want to be the foundation. I want to be in the details. And that's what was uncovered as we went through this process. God is not a strategy. God is not a soundbite. God is not something you pull off the shelf and say, hey, let me try this. How about let's make him the foundation of everything and make sure that he's in the details of everything so that things work out the way that he has planned for them to work out and not through my little limited vision for my life. So this has been eye-opening because I see him in the details of life as we journey through the Bible. Like I see him in the details of every aspect of life, from David crying out to Daniel to Jeremiah, and I see him in the details of every aspect of life. And I think a part of this, the other part of this that comes up for me is this quote from Darius Daniels that says, you will always behave in a way that is consistent with how you view yourself. So if I don't know who I am from what this Bible says, if I don't know what God says about me, the way that I'm behaving is just based on my limited view of myself. I can't even impact the world the way that God predestined me to impact the world because I don't even have a correct view of myself. I don't have a full view. So there's so much in this word that it just made me hungry. It just made me hungry. I've done so much studying and courses and all types of learning after we ended because I'm just hungry for it. I can't wait for us to do this again. Because I'm hungry for more and more because I get a better view of myself. And when I can recognize fully who I am, I recognize who I am in God and what he's placed me here to do. That's so much better than the strategy I was trying to use him as.
Oh my gosh. You're actually causing me to feel a bit of conviction because before the challenge, and I'm going to admit it still a little bit after the challenge, my prayer life is, God, this is what I want to do. Please get in alignment. Get in alignment with what I'm trying to accomplish. And that sounds pretty good. I mean, that sounds pretty good. But that's not the way that this thing is supposed to work. I'm not supposed to be asking God to get in alignment with my plans. I'm supposed to be getting in alignment with what God has planned. And oh my gosh, that you just you poke that fire, you stoke the fire there just a little bit, just a little bit. Those were my toes you were stepping on. You know, that thing that little bump that you felt, those were my toes that you were walking on right there.
Listen, I'm standing on mine too.
Ranieka, Kiki, how has this changed or impacted how you attempt to live your life, and or how you see life?
I think for me, and I think you all have heard me talk about the knock, seek, and ask, right? And for whatever reason, I was walking and I was reading that, and I really was. I read it, and I looked at it, and I was like, I know what my issue is. I don't ask. And I'm very independent, and growing up, didn't ask. And I think about my father and the times that I have really probably needed him but would not ask. And I thought to myself, wow, if I wouldn't ask my human father, then how afraid am I to ask my heavenly father? And so in all of this, what has really convicted me is that you got to ask.
Fantastic. Kiki, how is this? Now, again, you came into this, and my impression after that first session is you came in like a lion. I mean, you were like, roar, this is what's going on. This is the pace, and this is the interpretation level, and we go, yeah. I'm like, all right, okay, all right, got you. But how, if at all, how has this challenge affected how you see life, how you see your life? How is Kiki different because of this challenge versus the Kiki before, which was already strong?
No, I think it's going back to what I said before. It really is around understanding. I think having more clarity around how much God really does love me. That was the biggest takeaway for me, because I know I've said this before, this actually has allowed me to really learn more about the God that I love, and like any relationship. And I've had this relationship for a long time, but I didn't know him the way that I should have known him. And so now it allowed me to appreciate that love that much more, and for me to be able to love him better as well. So for me, it was a growth in that whole love relationship between me and God. That's really what it was, or me and Jesus. Yeah.
Wow, I love it. Well, we are closing in on the end of this part of the conversation. But man, if you guys have time, I got to bring you to the VIP room. Is where the conversation really turns up a dial, because the VIPs, they're like, okay, we got what you shared with everybody. We got what everybody got, but we got some questions we really want to understand. But before we close down on this part of the conversation, I would just love to go around and just have some final thoughts from everyone about what would you say to folks who have heard this conversation and they're curious, they're intrigued, and they're not necessarily committed to doing a 90-day Bible challenge, but they're gonna check out Google. They're gonna check in to Google to see exactly what does this reading plan look like, and who are these folks? What would you say to those folks who are curious about doing this? And then share just a little bit about how folks can get a hold of you if they wanna check you out for yourself, check out what you're doing for yourself. Bo, let's get started with you, man. What advice would you give to folks who are curious about what we've been talking about, because it still doesn't seem possible or real to them? What would you say?
They just need to do it, Galen. Just trust and do it. You won't be sorry, and get you some folks to do it with you. Have a group of folks, and you don't have to know them very well. If they're like-minded, they're willing to jump into. You will get as much out of the group, because there will be times that you're kind of struggling, you're behind, and you need to hear what they have to say, or what their perspective of things that maybe you missed, and you need a little encouragement to get through this. Most people will. So just do it.
Fantastic. Dr. Precious, how about you? Folks have heard this conversation. They know a little bit about what you do because you're a veteran to this podcast, and they're still not totally convinced. They're still not totally convinced. What suggestions would you share?
Yeah, I double down on what Bo has already said. Do it. But if that seems like a stretch for you, if it seems like a stretch to commit to the 90 days, commit to reading beyond what the pastor preaches on Sunday. Whatever text he takes, read the whole thing. Don't just read that one scripture that he pulls out. Read the entire chapter, the entire book that verse is in, so that you have a better understanding. And once you start doing that, you'll get hungry. You'll get hungry for more. You won't be able to stop at that one. You'll want to know what's happening in the full explosion of what's happening in the Bible, because there are so many things that are connected to that one verse. And if you only get the one verse that he uses or she uses as a text on Sunday, you will not have a full understanding of anything beyond what that particular preacher preaches about that Sunday. And that's not the way to live. That's a soundbite life. There's no reason to do that when there's a full Bible at your disposal. Get some friends and talk about it. Talk about it. I think that's where the power is in the conversation. Yes, do the reading. Get some people to read with you. Get your spouse to read with you. Talk about it over dinner. Like take baby steps to get there if you can't commit to the full 90 days. But giving up is not an option. We're too close.
I love it. I love it. And it's called the 90-Day Bible Challenge, but I'm just going to share. It took us 150 days to get through that 90-day challenge. I mean, I'm going to tell, right?
I wasn't letting it out, Galen. My famous line, my kids, I told everybody, my family, what I was doing to also hold myself accountable. They said, Dad, how's it going? I said, it's unbelievable. I'm in day 130 of my 90-day challenge.
So we used to often in the chat say, I'm behind, I'm only here, and I'm behind, I'm only there. And I can't remember which of you clarified the conversation and said, we are never behind. We are exactly where we're supposed to be. So, the challenge is just to motivate you to continue to want to be in this thing at more than just, a passage here and a passage there. So, great point. Ranieka, what are some final thoughts from you, and how can folks get a hold of you if they want to check this thing out and see who you are, because they're not quite over the line, right? It's like they heard Bo, they heard Dr. Precious, but they're not quite over the line about trying this thing out. What thoughts or words could you share?
My words are simple. Trust the process. Just trust the process. Just come on in and trust the process. That's what I had to keep saying about the Israelites. They just had to trust the process. And I would say for those who question it, even if you just spend some quiet time in the morning, I think that's what this did for me. I couldn't wait to wake up and have that little bit of quiet time. It wasn't enough time to get through all of the reading. So like I said, I had to put it in the car, and I'd love to hear the voice of the person who was reading the Bible. I would read it, and it was different. Every place that you put the Bible, you can find it different. If you're hearing it, it sounds different. If you're reading it, the text reads different than it sounds the same text, but it to me resonated different. And the question about finding me, this 90-day challenge has caused me to figure out the book that I want to write. So as a keynote speaker, people say, oh, you gotta have a book. And I said to myself, Jesus told a lot of fables, right? He talked about all these parables. And I do a lot of that, all these turn of phrases that I have. So that is my North Star, is to write this book of fables. So you can find me on LinkedIn. There's not many Ranieka Westons. So you just look for Ranieka. That's I before E, except after C, you'll find me. I'm starting my Instagram journey. My 17-year-old is helping me. He says, Mom, stick to LinkedIn. You're too old for that. But I am R. Weston. So you can find me there, and would love to connect with folks.
Fantastic. And then Kiki, one of the things I'd love for you to help some people with, because we've said a couple of times, hey, look, I was reading the Bible. I was listening to the Bible as I was on my walk. I was listening to the Bible in my car. I got this app that I'm using. Listening to the Bible, is it really reading the Bible? Talk us through what does this thing take, and what's the significance of using all of the resources that we might have at our disposal, and how can folks get a hold of you if they're still not sold, and they're probably convinced that not only is Galen a little off center, but he's just found some other folks who are a little off center to join him in this journey.
No. So first off, you have to use the mode that works for you, right? I'm not a very auditory person. There was some times that I would listen to it when I was way behind, but most of the time I like to read it, because that's just me. I like to read. So I would say to anybody that wants to dive deeper, use whatever mode works for you. If it is that you like to read, then read it. If you like you like to listen to audiobooks, then you're going to like listening to the Bible on audio, and it comes in all different voices. You can check it. People that you may actually know may have an audio Bible out there. You can actually get started if you're really curious. There's a whole series called The Chosen, which goes through the whole Bible, and that's available on YouTube. It's another way to get started. But I would say curiosity is the first step of transition. That's the first step and the first stage, because if you continue to do things in the same way, maybe you've been lukewarm in the faith for a long period of time, and this has sparked your interest. My gut is telling me that that's not just by coincidence. It's the beginning of your transition. So start to lean into things that maybe you wouldn't have leaned into before. People that that have kind of just sat in your spirit, that know the Bible. People love to be asked about their faith. Do it, because that's the thing that's going to start to allow the Holy Spirit to be able to speak to you in very organic ways through organic means. So just start somewhere. And if you're thinking about, I don't know if I can read the whole Bible, if you read Genesis, you're going to keep going. Genesis has got more in there than any book, movie that you ever want to see. It's one of my favorites. But the first thing is just to get started in some way, in whatever way that works for you. And as far as getting in touch with me, so I do a lot of leadership training and things of that nature. So you could find me on LinkedIn, like Ranieka, and the spelling of my name is going to be in this podcast. So make sure you don't miss any letters. And the same thing, I have a website under the same name, FredericaPeterson.com. And so feel free to reach out to me that way. I don't really connect publicly on any other social media at this point, but they can reach out to me through either one of those platforms, and hopefully I answered your question.
Fantastic. Well, this has been not only an incredible conversation, but this has been an incredible journey that I've been on. I think that, in life, you really focus on several significant moments that you continue to go back to. Some say it's the birth of a child. Some say it's the achievement of some sort of academic level. I think that this is going to be one of those moments that I continue to go back to personally, and still prayerful about how soon we do this again, because again, this is more than a notion. This was a good time, but yeah, this is more than a notion. But I can't think of a group of people that I would more rather do this with than the group who came together for this challenge. So with that, until I can get you into the VIP room, because that banging on the wall that you hear, that's the VIP saying, okay, you've taken way too much time with the regular folks. We actually paid. So raise your glass. And until we can connect again, thank you so much for who you are, for whose you are, and the courage that you tap into to do this at such a high level. So until next time, cheers. Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.